Hi guys, it's Debbie, and today I would like to give a full explanation of Mr. Nobody. If you haven't seen this film yet, I would highly recommend not watching this video because it will be spoiler packed. Mr. Nobody is very open to personal interpretations because the content it offers has a very theoretical, philosophical approach, starting from the main character whose name is Nemo and whose surname is Nobody. He is literally called Nobody. So the film introduces a somewhat realistic story, but it then proceeds to analyze dilemmas which would pertain more to philosophy. Nearly every element in the film is a metaphor, a symbol, a stratagem to explore certain concepts. Let's take a deeper look. The storyline actually begins before Nemo was born, in a sort of heavenly location where we meet some children which apparently know everything about life, past, present and future. These children represent our consciousness, our mind, if we want, our soul. The film shows how before becoming real children, being born, these kids are deprived of their knowledge of everything they know, and they are born into the world oblivious of everything, how we are born. But our main character Nemo, for unexplained reasons, does not have this gift removed, and so he can basically see everything that will happen in the future. This is a stratagem the film uses to introduce the concept of what would happen if we knew the future. What would happen if we knew what was going to happen? If we knew when our death would be? If we knew everything about our life? So Nemo is born into a caring, loving family and spends the first years of his life in a joyful manner, regardless of his unwanted gift. But then the plot thickens when one day his parents divorce and he is given the choice of deciding whether to spend the rest of his life with his mother or with his father. Again, all of this is presented in a very metaphoric manner, as the choice happens at a train station by either running towards the train which is leaving with his mother or remaining with his father at the train station. In that moment, Nemo's mind, which you can see in the future, immediately starts rushing to what would happen with either choice. So from this point onwards, everything that we see in the film happens within Nemo's mind. Older Jared Leto, the old man, the women he marries, his job, his teenage life, everything is inside little Nemo's mind as he starts to debate what the best choice would be. He thinks about leaving with his mother. In this way, he would become an obstinate teen, but which would meet Anna, with which he would have a rebellious, passionate relationship until the day she has to leave with her father to another city and never see him again. In this case, Nemo would grow up to become a depressed pool cleaner, which spends his free time looking for Anna, and years later coincidentally meets her, only to then have her number erased by one single drop of rain which falls on it, spreading the ink. He then considers staying with his father, looking after him, caring for his disability, and meeting Elise, which then would turn out to have a severe form of depression, leading to a pretty miserable life for both of them. But then within these two big choices, there are other smaller, infinite options. For example, in the option of staying with his mother, in one case he replies rudely to Anna and their love story never even begins. Or in another with his father, Elise dies in an explosion. Or again, Elise refuses him, so he returns home crying on his motorcycle and speeds and has an accident and ends up in the hospital in coma. In another option again, he picks Jean, another girl, and ends up living a wealthy lifestyle, but he is depressed on a daily basis and attempts suicide in his swimming pool, only to then survive, and to spice up his life, he impersonates a random person and ends up being shot and killed by a hitman in a bathtub. Or his car drives off a cliff and he dies drowning in a lake. In another option still, he ends up being a 118-year-old man living in a futuristic society in which he is the last mortal human being on planet Earth. There are millions of possibilities and different paths, but everything is within Nemo's little mind while he is on that platform choosing between his mother and father. As a matter of fact, as Nemo quickly ponders upon this decision at the station, various options flash by as confused dreams. They interrupt one another, they melt into one another. They also include weird dreamlike symbology because everything is set within Nemo's mind. That is why the film looks so weird. Then finally, little Nemo at the station makes his choice, and that is of not making a choice. To avoid the decision, he literally runs away from the station, and everything we saw in the film ends up never existing. Nemo never met Elise. He never became a 118-year-old man. His life becomes completely different. So at the end of the film, when the old man wakes up, starts laughing and starts walking backwards, it is simply the whole hypothetical situation unfolding, breaking down as Nemo in the end didn't make any of those choices. So altogether, the film is an analysis of choices and of what would happen if we could, in simple words, predict the future. So it pulls up some pretty interesting questions. Number one, could true love actually exist? With all the relationship Nemo has in all the different options, none of them seem to work, except with Anna. And even after splitting up, they still somehow coincidentally manage to find each other again. And in the third choice Nemo makes of not choosing either his father or his mother, he still somehow ends up meeting her and staying with her. Number two, are we the same person regardless of our life choices? The film analyzes how Nemo would become and how his personality would develop depending on his choices. For the most part, in the various different scenarios, Nemo remains the same quiet, reserved, somewhat depressed and anxious, but still quite rebellious person, but the plot also shows how his attitude and subsequent choices vary depending on his environment. In the situation with his father, he is loving and caring, whereas with his mother he tends to be rather cold and hateful. With Elise, he devotes his life to caring and loving for her regardless of the bad situation in which they are, whereas with his wealthy life with Jean, he spends his days as a depressed person which considers suicide. So are we really just ourselves? Or does our attitude and way of being depend on our surroundings? Is it molded by our environment? Number three, if we could see in the future, would we make the same choices? Or would we have made them anyway because that is the future? It is a tongue twister and a contradiction, but basically, is our future set out for us anyway? Or do we make it by making choices, but then at the same time by making the choices it would have been like that anyway? I hope somehow I'm making sense. As I was saying before, nearly everything in the film is left open to personal interpretation, and a lot of elements are metaphors. If you look closely, Nemo's life often ends in water. He commits suicide in the swimming pool, he is shot in the bathtub, he falls into a lake, Anna's number is erased by rain. And if it's not water, it's fire, explosions. Elise dies because of a tank full of gasoline explodes in front of her. In the option of the story in which they are in space, Nemo dies because the spaceship on which he is hit by meteorites and explodes. This is because these are the ultimate symbols of losing control, the ultimate symbol of a primal fear for death. If you smoke, you can decide to quit and avoid getting lung cancer. If you enjoy recreational skydiving, you can stop and avoid plummeting to your death. If you're sitting in your car and a tank full of gasoline explodes in front of you, you have no choice. If you lose control over the car and it ends off of a cliff and you drown in the lake, you don't have any control. If you wake up in a bathtub and a hitman shoots you, you have no choice. In the only scenes in which Nemo could have made a different choice, he could have changed the outcome of the situation. For example, not committing suicide or not speeding while crying on a wet, winding road, he actually survives. Also, there is a lot of symbology with the colours. The life with Elise is permeated with blues and greys, the ultimate colours of depression. The life with Jean is yellow and wealthy. The life with Anna is red for passion. While the life with his parents before the big choice is bland, brown, deprived of a interesting, significant colour palette. So in general, don't worry if this film doesn't make any sense. It's more of a philosophical debate. So let me know what you thought about Mr. Nobody with a comment here below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more movie reviews and explanations, and I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye!